As regulatory expectations rise and financial crime grows more complex, risk management is shifting from static checks to continuous intelligence. From the stage at this year's Web Summit Qatar, a tech conference with more than 30,000 attendees, we looked at how AI and advanced data analytics are transforming compliance workflows, from customer onboarding to ongoing monitoring at scale. I'm Jennifer Strong, and this is Shift.
Now here on the steering column is a device called Auto Cruise. You simply set the speed you want.
Self-driving robo-taxis are already on the road in 2 U.S. cities.
As the disc rotates, a mirror reflects the light in the way that depends on how the signal was recorded.
This is the 100 terabyte I present to you Electro, the Moto Man. Ladies and gentlemen.
I would say that one of my greatest skills is my ability to interact with humans.
This episode was taped in front of a live audience in Doha, where I spoke with Joel Lang, the Executive Vice President and General Manager of Dow Jones Risk and Research. This year, I'm all about not missing opportunities, and that starts with not missing calls, because no matter what size your business, a missed call is money out the door. Quo helps your team reply faster and stay on top of each and every conversation, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is the #1 business phone system on G2, with over 3,000 reviews, built for how modern teams work. More than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams, rely on it to stay connected, professional, and consistently reachable. Quo works wherever you are, right from an app on your phone or computer, and it lets you keep your existing number. It can even qualify leads or respond after hours, ensuring your business stays responsive even when you're finally offline. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/shift. That's quo.com/shift. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers.
Taking care of your eyes shouldn't be a hassle. That's why Warby Parker is a one-stop shop for all your vision needs. Our prescription glasses and sunglasses are expertly crafted and unexpectedly affordable. Stop by a nearby store or use our app to virtually try on frames and get personalized recommendations. Did we mention we offer eye exams and take vision insurance too? For everything you need to see, head to your nearest Warby Parker store or visit warbyparker.com today. That's warbyparker.com.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. All right, so Joel, to set the stage here, when we talk about risk and compliance, what are we talking about?
Well, risk and compliance is a broad topic, but the risk and compliance we've worked on at Dow Jones over the past 26 years is really helping banks and corporations to identify high-risk entities. So going back, let's take back to 2000, lots of scandals around money laundering, around corruption. Banks are kind of hit with these scandals, and they need to identify where the proceeds of corruption are being placed into banks, and they need to better understand who their customers are. So we started to see this phenomenon then of banks onboarding customers. Then once those customers are in the bank, they have to check them on a regular basis, and then also check the beneficiaries of payments. So that's a lot of checks, and it's not just around looking at those that are politically exposed, but also sanctioned individuals, sanctioned entities, as well as negative news, looking at potential criminality. And so a lot of work that has ensued with banks over the years in relation to these types of checks.
And traditionally speaking, because I think to understand where we are and where we're headed, it helps to know where we've been. What do these workflows look like?
So very manual, and so lots of manual work. And if you can imagine, in those 3 primary workflows of customer onboarding, ongoing monitoring, and payments, you traditionally had more time in the past opening a bank account. If you went to open a bank account, sure, 20 years ago, maybe take a few days, and that was reasonable for you. But now, with digitization and also banks wanting to serve their customers faster, there's a need to do that quicker, and so that's a challenge. Then when you look at ongoing monitoring, these are millions and millions of names that banks have. So not just their retail customers, their wholesale corporate counterparts, corporates that are doing these checks for third-party risk checks, checking their suppliers. And then you look at payments. You don't want to stop a payment, obviously, if it's wrong. But at the same time, you have to comply with the legislation to ensure that you're not sending a payment to a sanctioned individual, someone that's on one of these official lists issued by the United States government or the local government.
Right. And we're now talking about regulation all over the world, as well as the advances of AI, right? So there's a lot of layers to this. From a nuts and bolts point of view, though, how much has this changed in the last 5 years?
Significantly. And so we've seen a lot of opportunities. So they definitely over the last 20 years, the word that, or the phrase that compliance officers and practitioners of this space talk about is false positives. So being able to reduce the number of false positives, focus in on those true matches. And so it's really that precision of matching. And that's a challenge. Obviously, you're matching names that are in English. You're matching names here in the region. Obviously, very challenging to manage non-Latin characters. And then those firms that are working globally in multiple jurisdictions and multiple currencies, they have to match in different ways. And so what we've seen is inability to really hone in on the content. So how we curate content. We have been able to, as we aggregate sanctions lists and consolidate them, make that process more efficient. As we look into the media and extracting the names of people that have been involved in criminality, being able to use AI and machine learning to extract that content out, build that corpus of data. And then also the matching process is much easier with advanced technology, but you have to get it right. And that's the balance that organizations are trying to achieve.
Because it's an interesting time, right? Like with the amount of regulation, the geopolitics, the adding of cyber and many other elements to this type of work, it's simultaneously getting much more broad, but also much more specific.
Absolutely, and the thrust of this has been to be compliant, and that's first and foremost. So banks and corporates, they don't want to be fined by a regulator. They don't want to have some type of reputational risk. And the onus is on that compliance because you don't want to get that fine. But there are other risks out there. And I think as a global corporation is looking at these myriad of risks, looking at protecting the perimeter from cyber threats, looking at the unfolding fragmentation in the world with geopolitics, looking at supply chain disruption, we're seeing compliance workflows and risk workflows converge, and organizations looking to get a single view in that regard.
What would be a particular story or case study that might help bring this home for somebody?
Recently in the press, we saw a fine in the UK with Bank of Scotland fined £160,000. And it was an interesting fine because it was an associate of Vladimir Putin that a bank account was opened in that person's name. And the subject was a Russian individual, had used a UK passport though, and had a variation in the name. And so I think when we look at this activity, this matching activity, and how challenging that is, it's really important that you are using some variance in the matching exercise. What we saw, in our evolution of our content, we for the first 12 years of our business, we've been in this business for about 25 years, we were just providing the content. The actual data, the names of the individuals. And often the regulators would put various name variations of the individual on the list. But what we found around 2009, 2010, regulators going into the banks and actually entering in typos. So trying to basically see if criminals could get around these systems by having a variation in their name. And so around that time, you started to see more use of fuzzy logic, so different Levenstein-type algorithms to ensure that the variance wasn't just in the data, but the variance was also in the technology. But it's a balance, right? So the more that you create more variance in the technology, the more matches you're going to get. Right. And obviously, if you make it more precise, you might miss something. So what we've seen banks as well as corporates do is really look at those different risk categories of the content. Obviously, sanctions is absolutely critical. You cannot work with a sanctioned individual or entity if you trade in that currency, if you have an office in that location. But with politically exposed persons with political exposure, obviously politicians are good customers, right? That just happens to be a money laundering typology in relation to them. So you need to manage that risk potentially in a different way, maybe toggle your systems. And then similarly with adverse media, with criminality, and also profiles on other corporations in relation to other types of risk flags.
I don't know about you, but this winter in my household has felt long, cold, and busy. The good news is that Factor makes eating healthy easy with fully prepared meals made by real chefs using quality ingredients, including lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, and healthy fats. What you won't find in the box are any refined sugars, artificial sweeteners, or refined seed oils. The food is always fresh, never frozen, and it's ready to eat. Plus, there's more than 100 rotating weekly meals to keep things interesting. And if you hit the gym, there's a new Muscle Pro collection that supports strength and recovery. It's how I love to cook for my family, but when I can't, Factor's wide selection of allergy-friendly, high-protein meals and ready-to-eat salads offers us a no-compromise way to meet our health goals and our busy schedules. Head to factormeals.com/shift50off and use code SHIFT50off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only, varies by plan. One free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active.
This show is supported by Blue Land. Living a cleaner and more sustainable lifestyle by reducing single-use plastics is a small action that makes a big difference. And Blue Land is on a mission to make it easy for everyone to make those sustainable choices. They believe that hardworking, clean products can be the norm, not the exception, so that you can do better for your family and the planet at the same time. From cleaning sprays and toilet bowl cleaner to dishwasher and laundry detergent tablets, Blue Land's 100% microplastic-free, EPA Safer Choice certified formulas are safe to use around people, pets, and plants. You'll love not having to choose between the safe option and what actually gets your house clean. Blue Land products are independently tested to perform alongside major brands, and the formulas are free from dyes, parabens, and harsh chemicals. Plus, Blue Land is a certified B Corp and certified cruelty-free by Leaping Bunny. Their formulas are EPA Safer Choice certified, and many have received the Gold Material Health Certificate from Cradle to Cradle. And right now, Blue Land has a special offer for listeners. Get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/PRX. You won't want to miss this. blueland.com/PRX for 15% off. That's blueland.com/PRX to get 15% off.
You've alluded to this a couple times a bit, but I think it could be helpful for folks to really understand Dow Jones's history in this and also the work that you're doing now, just to kind of lay this out a little more.
Sure. So when I mentioned that kind of 25, 26-year history, we've been doing data the whole time. So we're very privileged and being in Dow Jones with the Wall Street Journal and Barron's and MarketWatch and our various publications. We also have had the world's largest media aggregate database, Factiva, where we're bringing together not just in our own publications, but also global news media, and then being able to extract content from that, licensed content. What we're very keen on as we bring that data together is that if we're building content off of news articles, and then you're using those news articles in your compliance workflow, we always say you shouldn't commit a crime when trying to mitigate financial crime, so you shouldn't steal content when you are trying to mitigate. So scraping is obviously a no-no. We pay for that content. We pay royalties on the use of that content within those systems. And we built up that corpus of data, of sanctions data, political exposure, of negative news into a database. And then over the last 12 years, we've built out analytics. And so we've got a really exciting new analytical tool, Dow Jones Integrity Check, where a report that would take 7 days, now using AI and generative AI, you can issue a report that'll find a lot of those same risks in about 15 minutes. So huge savings in time in relation to that. So it's data and it's analytics. And then we also do news, obviously, as part of Dow Jones. So we have our Dow Jones Risk Journal platform, as well as events. So we're here in Qatar. Tomorrow morning, we have a breakfast briefing where we're delving into all these different topics. So cybersecurity, climate risk, supply chain risk. really trying to give that community of risk professionals a forum so they can discuss and also interact with other risk professionals.
Super interesting. So with all of this said, do you have advice for people in the room?
Well, I think when we look to the landscape for the coming year, and we look at AI and all the opportunities, obviously here at Web Summit, there's just an amazing array of technologies and different opportunities in that regard. And we see in the compliance space, obviously innovation is important. Obviously no one wants to get it wrong though. Effectiveness is key, so you don't want to be the bank or the corporation that went too hard and too fast into AI and made a mistake. So definitely the advice is, and over the coming year, is look at those opportunities with AI, look at how you can leverage tools to improve that research process and accelerate the research process. But the human in the loop is so important for that. The human in the loop, when we create content, we tag someone as sanctioned, as politically exposed, or having negative media. It's so critical that we get that right. Yeah. And then equally for those practitioners, that they're leveraging their human capital, their human intelligence to analyze that output, look at the sources, make sure the sources are clearly attributed, and then make decisions. But the opportunities for efficiency are clear.
Obviously. Well, because to your point earlier, it's a cost center doing this work, and efficiency matters.
Definitely. And that can definitely be accelerated. And so I know that there's a lot of pressure on compliance operations teams. They have lots of the new AI tools that are coming in. They're using them in their daily lives. There's initiatives within the organization to leverage AI, but being careful in that regard because these decisions are so critical. The decision to bank someone or not to bank someone, the decision to work with a supplier or not. So you need to make sure that you're using really solid data in your systems.
So over the breadth of the work that you're doing globally, are there particular trends in different areas that you're watching or differences between regions? I think especially with all the different people from different places gathered here, that could be.
Absolutely. When we started building out our news platform a couple of years ago, we saw how much geopolitical risk was really on the minds of our customers, and also really, again, that convergence between compliance and risk, those that were doing these types of checks, but also concerned about cybersecurity threats, supply chain, and geopolitics. And so we, in that time, as we built out the Risk Journal platform and looking to cover geopolitics, acquired a couple companies, Oxford Analytica and Dragonfly, which were giving additional signals. So signals to identify, how different geopolitical risk theaters were going to unfold, looking at what's going on in Asia, what's going on here in the region, looking at Ukraine, also in terms of keeping your people safe and doing specific risk ranking on countries. And so we built that out more for our customers, as well as just really taking a long-term view and taking a systemic or a systematic view to managing geopolitical risk and embedding it in those systems. So previously, geopolitical risk maybe sat in the C-suite and was a bit of analysis that maybe was done in different pockets. Global organizations are seeing all these changes going on in the world, and how can they bring that into their risk management functions, looking at scenario planning and how they can model some of these outcomes. Obviously, it's very unpredictable, but if you can have some type of planning around it, it definitely helps.
I mean, that feels like one of the other significant shifts of recent years, right? To go from this being kind of a technical or a side to being much more of a boardroom kind of conversation, would seem.
Right, and embedded in different departments. So geopolical risk and the risks that ensue as a result of changes in the U.S. administration, different decisions by the UK government, different decisions by the EU, how that then affects different departments within the organization. And so we work specifically now in keeping people safe in the corporate security side, working with corporate security officers. But obviously geopolitical risk has impacts across the organization. So it's definitely something that we see every element of the C-suite looking at.
Yeah. Has anything surprised you over the course of this work?
I think a lot of that this is discussed in the press. I think what's interesting with the two geopolitical risk firms that we've acquired, Oxford Analytica and Dragonfly, they looked at it from a different perspective. Mm-hmm. So when you look at it in terms of the signals that are coming out of, for example, evacuation of air bases or intelligence on the ground, it may lead you to say, we think it's a high scenario that this is likely to happen. But then I think on the other side, when we work with the folks at Oxford Analytica that are taking this more long-term view, they're looking at the different influences, what different countries are thinking in different times, and what strategies they have as countries, and how that might affect different instances. And so I think what it tells you is that scenario planning is key, but there's always different scenarios, and it's about putting a likelihood on how things will unfold.
Yeah. Well, we've got 1 minute left. It's already flown by. Of all the things we could talk about, what's something we would be remiss if we didn't bring up before we left?
I think we mentioned about the opportunities with AI. We've mentioned about the different risks that are there. I think community is really important for these practitioners, that they can discuss. It's not really as much a competitive. Obviously, everything's competitive in the corporate sphere, but I think information sharing is so key, and bringing communities together that can coalesce around these ideas and discuss them so we can solve them together.
Yeah, I think actually, and that's a good thing to end on, it's my theme usually of Web Summit Doha. It's because when you look at whether it's space tech or cyber or, for that matter, critical minerals, it's going to take a lot of hands on deck to really get to the root of some of the change in front of us. Thank you all very much for being here, and thank you.
Thank you for having me.
This episode was produced by me and Emma Cillekens and mixed by Garret Lang, with original music from him and Jacob Gorski. Thanks for listening. I'm Jennifer Strong.
Museums are more than places we visit on a field trip. Across the country, museums protect our shared history, care for wildlife and collections, strengthen local economies, support job training, and spark curiosity in people of all ages. Right now, you can help make sure museums stay strong for future generations. Museum Advocacy Day is a national moment when people contact Congress to ask for continued support for museums and the federal agencies that fund them. Learn how to take action at aam-us.org and tell your representatives that museums matter to education, to communities, to the economy, and to our democracy.